Why
Yeah.
are we here talking to you tonight as a celebrity interview?
Yeah, well, this is really cool. I was interesting. I was looking at your slides about the tools and DMAIC and DMEDI process and all that, and I'd love to have some conversation about tools. And we'll talk a little bit about lean, and something I want to tickle you guys with is lean is a lot more than the tools. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. And by the way, that's not saying don't do the homework, don't do the tools. There's great learning in using those tools. Most of those tools I've used through my career or variants of. But let me start a little bit myself. Let's go back to 1983. I probably was not sitting very far from maybe where one of you are today. I graduated from Cal Poly in 1983, San Luis Obispo, out of the mechanical engineering department, and started to fulfill my lifelong dream of being an aerospace engineer, and spent 10 years in aerospace. And for any who's interested in going aerospace, talk to me first. It's a wonderful career to have. It's a wonderfully cyclic organization to be involved in too, but I had 10 years in aerospace and some pretty awesome stuff I got involved in: thermal system analysis, test engineer, program engineers, design engineers, and probably something everything between those. But 28 years ago, I joined Solar Turbines. And some of you might know who Solar Turbines is. It's a gas turbine engine manufacturer. The world's largest, that might surprise people, it's the world's largest industrial gas turbine engine manufacturer, up to 30,000 horsepower range. And we compete against the likes of Siemens and Kawasaki's and GE's and many more. So I've been there 28 years. And what is interesting, let's talk about lean for a second. I read a book in 1990 when I was still in aerospace and a young engineer, about 5-6 years in. Any idea what that book would be? But bonus points here if anyone can identify the 1990 lean book.
Okay, so you could go ahead and type that answer in the chat, and if you get the answer right, we will give you 6 points of stand-up credit. How's that for incentive, Howard? Is that
and a coupon with Howard?
And a coupon with Howard.
So I read this book, and it was about lean. And as an engineer, I was really excited about engineering, solving problems, making things. And all of a sudden, after I read this book, what I did as an engineer took on a totally different light, and how I affected the entire company, how I connected to customers. When I walked through the manufacturing floor, how I affected manufacturing, everything was much, much different. And did a project that wasn't lean at the time. It was one of the Deming efforts, and did some really cool stuff there. But after I got to solar, I went to kind of lean hibernation for a long, long time. And my career at solar has been pretty wonderful and exciting. Sometimes I'll explain a little bit more about the details, but I've traveled the world, I've designed many different things and facilities and turbine engines and gas compressors and you name it, some really cool stuff. But I think it was about 13 years ago, the director of the turbine development group hired me on, wanted me to lead some development programs down there. And he was a little tired of our product development process and all the challenges we had. And he was thinking of modifying our guidebook. And some of you may have heard the phrase NPI, new product introduction. That's something very popular in the industry. Started about 30 years ago. It's still alive and well at Solar. But it was a guidebook, and he was toying with, do I add 50 more different checklists to my guidebook that we won't follow anyway, or do I try to look at doing product development differently? And then that's where he cracked open some books. One by, and if you're interested, I strongly recommend anything written by Jeff Liker. There's a couple, like in the manufacturing industrial sector, I would say the Toyota Way is a must read. I mean, a must read. And I would suggest the Toyota Way field guide. It's an easier to read, and it has a lot of information between the lines. So we talk a lot about tools. There's a lot between the lines of making the tools work and when to use them. So got real excited about that after I read those books, and I've been on a pretty intense lean journey for the last 13 years in product development. Obeya rooms, stream mapping, all those tools you use there. Plus we've developed some of our own tools. And about 2 years ago, a publication came out written by Jim Morgan and Jeff Liker called Designing the Future. And if you thumb through that, there's about 3 sections in that book about our story at Solar and our experiments and our success there.
Oh, very cool.
Hopefully you have some questions about lean and, what does it mean more than just the tool? And,
Howard, before we get into that sort of thing, um, so your current job, you're the lean
well, I'm
sensei
not,
guru, or what is your real what is your real day job?
yeah, well, I guess I'd probably be in the hallways called the lean evangelist. But my formal job is I manage the products management group in gas compressor engineering, and I have a quality role that reports into me, but I also have the product manager who works with the customer facing organizations and other organizations to determine where we're going, roadmap and our technology and our product. Program managers that lead these development efforts in order to bring that roadmap to fruition.
Okay.
So I lead that group there. And I tell them my job's to do nothing. And I think they're beginning to believe me. It's because the group's a really talented, wonderful leadership group. So,
Yeah.
but that's my day job. And my real job is to inspire, mentor, and teach people.
Yeah.
I should not be the boss with the answers. I should be the boss with the questions.
Okay, very cool. Hey, Howard, so I see in the chat that you had a fantastic response to your what book was that sort of question. So
I gotta figure out how to see the chat.
I gotta go back up. So it kind of looks like we're somewhere all the way back up to Ryan, I think, sort of started the cascade there.
So I'm trying to find where the chat is. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So chat
guy. I'm more of a Teams guy.
No, that's okay. And it's in the center of the Zoom bar, right? There's a little bubble that says chat.
Got it.
Next to the green screen. There you go. And so
let's see here.
And if you scroll all the way back
Machine that changed the world. There's a lot of extra credit points there. Google's an amazing thing, isn't it? So
I'm gonna make the call though. Ryan was the first one to hit it, I think. So
okay,
if that changes anything. So Ryan Burr is the.
I think the real credit point should be anyone who has read the book. So
yeah,
there you go. It really changed my life. By the way, the phrase "lean" came from that book. Lean was not a Toyota thing. It was the three authors of that book who coined the phrase lean to describe what they were seeing. And that was Jim Womack. Jim Womack's the founder of LEI, still alive and well and very vibrant. I don't know if anyone had the fortune of meeting him. Pretty incredible person. So yes, person. So
yeah. So maybe Howard. So I'm going to encourage, like you said, for people to enter questions in the chat. We're going to be sort of student centric on getting their questions answered. Maybe as sort of a warm up, what's the big lean challenge in your current role and in your current job? So there's some hints there of it's probably not tools, but what do you think your biggest challenge is? From a lean perspective, at this point.
It's clear and it's easy. Thinking values and behaviors of an organization. So when we run into problems, and let's say we have a test failure or a product failure, or we're looking at improving a process, engagement and thinking this way is not a normal tendency of most organizations. And I've had an opportunity the last 10, 15 years to spend a lot of times with lots of companies around the world, and companies that aren't just your engineering companies. They might be pharmaceutical companies. They may be printer companies like HP. They might be construction companies or hospitals or whatever. The biggest challenge most of us have is our cultural thinking, values, and behaviors do not reflect to these methods, like the DMEDI method and DMAIC method, and PDCA and A3 problem solving, all these things. What's interesting is I've seen many Six Sigma DMEDI and DMEDIC programs where, yeah, they have the define, they have the measure, and they have the analyze, but did they really hit at the intent of those sections and get the value and information out of it? There's a great tendency, I think it's human tendency, I think it's amplified in organizations because we really want quick results. We need quick results. We need them for our business. We need them for all sorts of different things. And there's this great tendency to want to jump to the solution. And I challenge the students when you're doing team projects or things of that nature, just watch your own behavior and watch the behavior of your friends and colleagues. You're going to find there's this great tendency, I've got the solution, I got the solution. And quite often, what's interesting, if you queried all 5 of those students, asked them for a dissertation on what the problem is, you might find everyone has a different interpretation of the problem. So how in the world can you even be talking about solutions? And usually a lot of times where this friction occurs, again, whether it's in your classrooms with your colleagues or at work, this friction usually has to do with 2 things. One is not having a clear and a common understanding of the problem statement. And that seems trivial, but believe me, that you explore that some, you'll be really surprised what you see. And 2 is a common understanding of the current situation. There are a lot of assumptions and perspectives of what the situation or problem is. And for some reason, we don't like to spend the time to fully understand it factually. And so this is a tendency to want to jump to solutions.
Yeah, Howard, I think that's interesting. In one place where I see that rub sort of happening a lot in defining the problem is we tend to define the problem, maybe too internally, and we should be like bringing the cut, like, well, how does it affect the customer? Because the customer and lean, is tightly connected. And we say, well, my problem is my boss isn't happy, right? Well, that's sad, but it's not, maybe the goal or the purpose or the connection we have from a lean perspective, right?
Yeah, and that's part of the cultural thing. So let's just take a typical engineering organization. Almost all engineering organizations are matrix style organizations. They have the functional organizations, right? And for example, in gas compressor engineering, we've got the aerodynamics group, the rotor dynamics group, mechanical design group, the structural analysis group, configuration change management, and then my group. Within those groups, there's a bunch of expertise. And so when you're solving a problem, quite often the focus is from that expertise.
Right.
Now, developing a product, now you have a product team. It's a gas compressor engineering organization, the package engineering organization, the customer service organizations, the supply chains in there, and manufacturing's in there. Manufacturing is being asked to reduce their cost and improve their Six Sigma quality down there. Supply chain's getting beat up for their supply chain diversity and all these other things. And you bring them together in a team, and this team is supposed to create the best product for who? Not supply chain, not even gas compressors. It's supposed to create the best product for the customer.
Right.
But culturally, each of these organizations are motivated and driven in ways that aren't always connecting to the customer. And that's one of the things that we did in gas compressors and the in creation of the products group. It's our job is to manage the trade-offs between the silos to create the best product for the customer. And that's really difficult. So when you ask the question about what's difficult about lean, it's the cultural, it's the organizational dynamics, it's your own personal dynamics. Someday I'll tell you about broccoli and candy and managing workflow across your desk. Think about it when you're doing homework. I bet you have some classes you really like, and other classes it's like, I just don't want to do that crap, right? That's the candy and broccoli. So when you go to start doing your homework, the human nature is usually to pick up easy and fun. It's not human nature to pick up hard and difficult, unless you're kind of different. And if you are, let me know. I got it.
Well, it's interesting on that too. And I've worked with a lot of engineers also in my career, that the electrical engineer will think, you won't really think of it as fun. We'll think of, well, the electrical problem is the hard nut to crack, and I'm going to do that. We should focus on that. And so when you talk about like telling, like some people can't tell the difference between candy and broccoli,
Right?
And they kind of they don't see it in that kind of way, right? Hey, Howard, I want to make sure that the customers, the students, know that we need some questions to steer the conversation in directions which will give them value. So if you put down a good question and we get you on the screen to ask it, This is worth 6 stand-up credit points. So if you haven't
And those questions, I just caught the tail end of Eric's presentation. He was talking about fishbone. He's talking about standard work, tool usage, and all these different things. Boy, there's a whole conversation about each and every one of these tools. I'm curious what do you struggle with when you go to practice these tools?
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's messy stuff.
Yeah. Well, and they're, most of the students in this class are kind of at that stage though too, where, they just heard about a fishbone diagram 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And so, they're going to have a first opportunity in this mini project to just take these tools out for a spin and kind of see what the problems are and what they're going to run up against. You and I and Wes and folks with a little bit more experience, our challenge is like, how do we prepare them? How do we encourage them? I think the learning process has failure associated with it, right? So,
yeah.
Maybe don't expect your first fishbone to work out perfectly, or, all the tools don't always, run like the textbook. You got to be thinking, right? That whole lean thinking part on top of it, right? So let's see. So Connor got us kicked off. So Connor, why don't you go ahead and pop on and ask your question?
So, I see it right there. So is what?
No, Howard,
Connor, please. Yeah, no, Connor, please. I want to hear from you.
So my question was, what was a significant problem you faced, and were there any specific tools that you used to get through it?
Yeah. So we have a high pressure gas compressor closed loop in natural gas, and it goes up to about 5,000 PSI. And we have gas compressors driven by our turbine, and that's our test bed, right? So it's a facility that catches your attention from a safety point of view, but it's also just the ultimate engineer toy. I mean, we do some really cool stuff on there. And about a year ago, we cracked one of the pipes, right? And this is test facility pipe. And the pipe was about 6 inches in diameter, probably 7/8 inch wall, and it was cracked. And it was cracked 1/3 of the way around it, right? That catches your attention. As soon as I saw that, my program manager already shut it down, and I said, okay, this is really serious stuff. How the hell did we do this? So we got together, and we started using A3 problem solving. And by the way, DMEDI, DMAIC, A3, PDCA, they all have very similar attributes, but we're using A3, and so understanding the current situation is really important. And then as we started getting facts and data and information, we used the fishbone. All right. So when you solving engineering problems, a lot of people come up with fishbones, great tool. And don't overthink it, by the way, but thinking something to keep in mind is what goes on the head. What's the fish head? And the coaching that I give most of my engineers is I want a failure mode. I want a physics type of based failure. I don't want crack pipe. That's where it starts, right? There's a lot of things that crack pipes. And so in this particular one, we have obviously a great materials group, and we identified was high cycle fatigue, right? And so we put together a fishbone diagram, and we came up, with the design, with the environment and all these different things. And we started brainstorming what could cause this crack to occur. And one of the things that we're looking at structural modes, right? So, you typical, if you put your ruler on the end of the table and you flick it, that's a cantilever mode, and it flicks at a certain frequency. And so we're looking at various different structural modes, and we're doing analysis and all. But how is this structural mode going to get excited? So we did on the fishbone, we did acoustics. There's acoustics excitations called Helmholtz effects that can happen in pipes. And we looked at that, and we looked at just natural vibration come off the vibration, the turbo machinery interfering with its modes. And so all these different things, and a couple, 2 or 3 months later, and a ton of high-powered engineering as well as consulting engineering, and we crossed off every single bone on the fishbone. There were no bones left. We still had a crack pipe. So, talking about tools and when did I use a tool, Yeah, we certainly used that tool and it was great, but sometimes you run into nasty dead ends. So the bottom line is there's a bone we were missing. We found the bone, believe it or not. And it was something I had never seen in my career. It was called the shell mode. It's also a vibration mode, but they're much higher frequencies. And I can tell you about all the challenges we had with not understanding your instrumentation, and basically we're blind to some of the things that are going on. But the fishbone is an incredibly great tool. It generates the right conversation to focus where your attention needs to be. A lot of these tools, they don't necessarily lead you clearly and mechanistically to the answer or the situation, but they help guide the conversation and the activities into a constructive manner.
Okay. All right, thanks, Connor.
Mhm.
Let's go to the next question. Hey, Wes, do you want to help call and queue up questions for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like Tiffany was next.
Hi, I was wondering, what is something that you wish you would have known before going into the lean world?
Oh, how difficult it was going to be. Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's an awesome question. So there's two things you need to know. So because what I'm about ready to tell you will probably scare the heck out of you, but then what I will follow with will hopefully inspire you. I talked about the culture and the difference of it. It is radically different than the thinking, values, and behaviors of organizations and people for that matter. You know, a lot of this seems to be common sense, but reflect on your own life day to day, you will find you don't necessarily do things lean. So there's a lot of aspects to this. So, and then there's a lot of corporate pressures and norms that this begins to run up against. And a lot of the things that I've been involved in and I practice lean on get the visibility of our president's staff. Right, we develop product and also the president's staff gets visibility of this and they have expectations. And some of this goes back to our mother company all the way back to Caterpillar. So you get a lot of help, traditional mindset, and you're trying to run and do things radically different. And it's really, really difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life. And you come under an awful lot of scrutiny and you come under a lot of, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Now, what happened in my journey was, fortunately enough, I'm a strong enough leader and a sure-footed enough leader, and also one that's not is okay with taking risk. So what happened though on the journey in some of my programs, we got some key milestones and situations that far exceeded expectations. And then I got a little bandwidth to go a little further, right? But that comes and goes. I mean, I've changed organizations since when I first started this. Leaders change around me. As a matter of fact, I now have a new leader I'm working for, and she doesn't understand lean. Very bright person, and I've known her for a long time. Great person to work with, but her reflexes are not this. So that's really, really, really difficult. But here's the kicker, is when you're able to get a team, and a lot of times I haven't changed the culture of solar. I'm trying to work on that. But change the culture of a team or a smaller organization, it's a much better place to work. I can't overemphasize that. When you think about when you have, and although with COVID days maybe you don't do this much, but when you barbecue a tri-tip with your friends, and your friends ask you, "Hey Tiffany, how was your school week?" And you go, "Oh, it sucked," right? Well, despite the homework, you might be talking about your professor changed the problem statement on your homework and you had to do a bunch of rework. I'm throwing them under the bus because I know who they are. Those things happen, right? Or a colleague, you're waiting on some information on a colleague to be able to do part of your project and you're waiting for that. So those things that make it frustrating in your life are also those wastes that are on lean. The things that make your life rewarding is the value added. I did something, right? I completed an assignment. I solved a problem, whatever have you. You did something of value either for yourself, a colleague, or someone else. And so lean really gets at the core of, to me, the human experience. And that sounds like a pretty grand statement, but it really, really is. So the journey from our cultures, thinkings, values, and behaviors and to where we're going, it's very difficult, but we're headed the right way.
Thanks for that. Hey,
All
hey,
right.
Wes, what, I just
You
want to confer on this. So, so we got a, time target to hit, which would be, maybe like 5 or so after the hour. So I know you were helping me manage the end game, last time. So I'm going to count on you to shuffle questions if you have to, or
I'll give the shorter version. I've never been known as the Reader Digest version, so I'll try to give the shorter version.
that's okay. All right, we're good.
Okay. Well, then we'll play it. So we want to be done at 5:05-ish.
Yeah, something like that.
Is it all right if I bookend this? Because I have a question.
Well, is it bookend time?
No, I just wanted to know if that was.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, you're
All right.
I'll give you
Marcus.
stand-up credit, Wes, if you want 5 points. Is that good?
Been waiting 3 years for this. Marcus, you're up.
Hi. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask if there was like any one or a number of tools that you found to be like throughout your career that were, the most useful and or like effective, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share my screen real quickly here. Is this coming through? Can you see it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
there now. Yeah.
So this was the aha moment, and this came out of the Toyota way. It's House of Quality, and there's lots of different versions of it. The one I think that's most true is the Toyota way version. And when we talk about tools, but one of the very first things you have to realize, Lean, is you're focused on true north. You need to be adding value to the customer, right? Either a service or a product, and you have to have the best performance, quality, and price. That's what we do. And you want to do that in a way that you only add value, and all those wasteful things, they don't benefit your customer. So you want to try to focus on getting that out. So you have a continuous flow of value out of work. I won't talk a little too much about quality at the moment, but then it's based on these foundational principles called standard work and leveled work. What don't I have in here? Real quick. I don't have these. I don't have the tools. So you asked me what's the most important tool. I don't have a favorite tool, but I consider this house a great tool. And the reason I do that is once you begin to understand these values and you begin to work your problem solving and towards these values, these tools will naturally come whether you've ever been exposed to them or not. And so the best tool to me is when I have conversations with people, and hopefully somebody will reach out to me later, we need to talk about the importance of standard work. I can tell you a great story about the value of standard work. This is perhaps one of the most important things, and it's absolutely nauseating as an engineer to think about that, but it is insanely valuable. So to me, the most important work is, or tool, is understanding the values, how they build, and they're built off the foundation of standard work. Now, it's probably not what you wanted to hear, but depending on the problem, I grab all sorts of different tools. I love fish bones. They're fantastic. I love what we call an attributes matrix. It helps you make decisions, focused on the customer, all sorts of different things. Value stream mapping is awesome to reflect on our process. But fundamentally, the best tool is to understand the values of Lean. Then the tools just naturally come.
Very good.
Yeah. I know there was a couple other questions, and actually I'm gonna cede my desire because I think that Daniel's question kind of sums up what I was going to ask, but it's much more eloquent. So
right.
if that's cool, can Daniel close us out, Eric?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's bring Daniel on. Daniel, close us out here.
Thank you, Wes and Eric. Thank you, Howard, for sharing everything. My question is that we kind of think of process improvement as a series of tools and a math equation. We kind of put something through the machine of a process, and then it sort of does the thinking for us, as well as it sort of puts things into those boxes. But as you've hinted, it's really not that simple. There's a human element involved in that, and that's something that can't really be regulated through tool use. That's something that has to be really developed and honed. And what I would like to know is how do you navigate that sort of human component between each sort of tool use and to kind of get the end results?
Yep.
Be very helpful.
So as a leader and a problem solver, that skills when you get in the real world, or even the world you live in, which is real, that is a skill that has to be developed by great leadership. And so when you get a team, and typically these problems are really nasty, and you got multiple people on the team, anywhere from a small team of 5 people to 20 plus people, and you're going to have all sorts of dynamics there. You're going to have the dynamics of the functional organization wanting to optimize for their deliverables. You're going to have the person that has a pet project or a pet technology they want. You have people that are working on perceptions of information that aren't necessarily factual or unknown. And what you need, I guess, the most important thing is how do you keep the team engaged with the right values of problem solving? One of the techniques I use, because this happens a lot, I'm a huge fan of, and I can't overemphasize this, the most important part of problem solving and the most difficult is understanding the current situation. I mean, complete, thorough, accurate, factual understanding the current situation. And that is really, really difficult. Sometimes you don't even know how to get the facts and the data that you need. Sometimes you can't, but, and people, that's very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everyone in the room there, and they're going to want to jump to the solution. They have a perception what the facts are, they have perception of what the solution is, and they want to go do something. This weird thing called doing is like the pacifier, all right? Matter of fact, it's even the pacifier for your boss. And I told my boss this the other day when she was giving me a lot of pressure on a problem I had. I said, I can stick a pacifier in your mouth and I can go run an experiment, try something, but I don't think that'd be worth our time. But it creates this kind of endorphins that you're doing something. She can tell her boss we're doing something. Just something weird about doing doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. And so there is, how do you pacify people that want to be doing things or they think they have the answer? One method quite often is people come up with solutions and they go, that's great, let's capture it. So you need to show them that you've listened to them and it's plausible and you haven't thrown their idea or perception in the trash can. And you put it in the process, you make it visible, and you make sure that they know we're going to get to that. And now let's get back to understanding the current situation, whatever. So you really have to read the dynamics of the room. And I mean, there could be 30, 40, 50 totally different types of problems. You might have people problems. And by the way, most problems aren't people problems. They're usually cultural problems. So you have to keep them engaged on the values of the problem solving. It's real important to keep them engaged on the values. And sometimes you have to, depending on the personality, you have to split off to the side and have one-on-one and get to know them, understand what they're struggling with. And I'll leave you with this one. F does not equal MA. And E does not equal MC squared either. F equals MA divided by Wes raised to the power Eric and minus Jack, Jill, and Harry, and multiplied by dollars. These problems that you solve are really, really messy. And we like that. And I love the mechanistic thing here. These aren't mechanistic problems. Now, a big parts of it can be mechanistic, but there's a lot of other things you're solving other than the mechanics and the physics. You're solving organizational and people problems too.
Awesome. So we have a couple other questions, and then I'll, Howard, is it cool if we send those to you, the ones
absolutely.
that didn't get answered, and see if we can pick your brain a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to send my contact information, including phone numbers, whatever, I actually get up in the San Luis Obispo area a lot, and probably will be up there a lot more. So
Okay.
if you guys want to spend an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours with me, you want to bring me into one of your teams, whatever, or I'm all here. If you're interested in lean, you get all the time you want out of me.
That's great. All right, Howard. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This was the first time you celebrity interviewed for us. So, so these students got to see your maiden voyage, but I hope we get you back
Absolutely.
more quarters in the future. You certainly got a lot of great things to share, and I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you very
Very
much.
good. Someone asked about LinkedIn. Sure. Send me a request and I'd be more than glad to hook up.
Okay.
You're a
Cool.
assuming you're a D student or better.
Careful
You're a
with
Cal Poly
being
student though, right? That's-
Yeah.
careful
well,
being
that-
really good at this, Howard. Otherwise, he might have you to start teaching this class.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'd love to do that as well. So
All right, there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and thank you, Howard. Let's go ahead and take a
Thanks.
5-minute break.
thank
So
you.
let's see.